Kim Jong Un's military forces just suffered one of the most humiliating setbacks in recent North Korean history. And what happened along that border tells a story that changes everything we thought we knew about the balance of power on the Korean Peninsula. 7 North Korean guard posts destroyed in coordinated strikes. Command bunkers that were supposed to be hardened against conventional attack, gone. And the weapon systems that did this, South Korea deployed them without a single shot being fired back in response. Welcome to Legal Lens USA. I am your host, David Reynolds. What you're about to hear will completely change how you understand the military dynamics that are unfolding right now between North and South Korea. Dynamics that have direct implications for American forces stationed in the region and for the broader strategic competition between the United States and China. Before we go any further, if you are new here, hit that like button and subscribe right now because we cover stories like this before anyone else does, and we break them down in a way that actually makes sense. The mainstream media will give you surface-level reporting. Legal Lens USA gives you the analysis that connects the pieces no one else is putting together. Somewhere along the Korean demilitarized zone, the most heavily fortified border on planet Earth, a series of events unfolded that revealed something profoundly significant about North Korean military capability and political control. The DMZ stretches 160 miles across the Korean Peninsula, a strip of land 2.5 miles wide that has separated North and South Korea since the Armistice Agreement in 1953. Within the zone, both sides have constructed elaborate defensive positions, underground tunnels, observation posts, and command bunkers designed to survive everything from conventional artillery to tactical nuclear strikes. The North Korean side of the DMZ has been described by military analysts as one of the most heavily militarized stretches of territory anywhere in the world. Guard posts positioned every few hundred meters, reinforced concrete bunkers buried deep into mountainsides, overlapping fields of fire designed to annihilate any force attempting to cross. These installations were built over decades, fortified continuously, maintained by a military that dedicates enormous resources to border defense because the DMZ represents not just a military boundary, but the physical manifestation of the regime's survival. The guard posts targeted in these recent strikes were not simple observation towers. They were fortified positions equipped with heavy machine guns, anti-tank weapons, communications equipment linking directly to regional command centers, and protective structures designed to withstand direct hits from conventional munitions. Some of these positions had stood for more than 40 years, weathering storms, military exercises, periodic exchanges of fire, and the slow erosion of time. They represented permanence, strength, the visible projection of North Korean military power staring across the border at South Korean and American forces. Then on a series of days that will be studied in military academies for years to come, South Korean forces systematically dismantled these positions using weapon systems that exposed a capability gap so severe that it calls into question fundamental assumptions about North Korean military readiness. According to South Korean military officials and regional defense analysts, the strikes employed precision-guided munitions delivered by artillery systems that North Korean forces apparently could not counter, could not intercept, and ultimately could not survive. The weapon responsible for this operational success is a system that has been quietly revolutionizing artillery warfare while most of the world focused on hypersonic missiles and stealth aircraft. The K-9 Thunder self-propelled howitzer, paired with the K-10 ammunition resupply vehicle and integrated into a digitized fire control network, represents what modern artillery looks like when a technologically advanced military applies precision guidance, rapid response capability, and network-centric warfare principles to conventional ground systems. Most people think of artillery as the same basic technology that has existed for a century. A gun fires a shell in an arc. The shell lands somewhere in the general vicinity of the target, and you fire enough rounds to eventually hit what you are aiming at. The K-9 Thunder system does not work that way. It fires shells that adjust their trajectory mid-flight, guided by GPS coordinates fed into the system by forward observers, drones, or satellite intelligence. The difference between old artillery and this system is like the difference between throwing a baseball in the general direction of a target and using a laser-guided baseball that corrects its path constantly until it hits exactly where you aimed. The K-9 Thunder can fire 6 rounds per minute in sustained operation, with burst rates reaching 8 rounds per minute. That means a single vehicle can place 48 precision-guided shells on target in 6 minutes, each shell landing within 10 meters of its designated impact point. When you coordinate multiple K-9 systems through a digital fire control network, which is exactly what South Korean forces did, you can deliver overwhelming firepower with accuracy that makes every single round count. The system uses what is called shoot-and-scoot tactics. The vehicle rolls into firing position, receives targeting data through its networked systems, fires its mission, and relocates before counter-battery fire can be directed at its previous position. From the moment it stops moving to the moment it fires and begins relocating, the entire sequence takes less than 90 seconds. For North Korean artillery crews attempting to respond, that creates an impossible problem. By the time they identify where the fire came from, calculate a firing solution, and prepare to return fire, the K-9 has already moved hundreds of meters away. Traditional counter-battery tactics assume that artillery positions remain static long enough to target them. The K-9 Thunder was specifically designed to violate that assumption. Iranian military experts who have analyzed similar precision artillery systems have noted that this capability fundamentally changes the mathematics of artillery duels. Where conventional artillery requires firing dozens or hundreds of rounds to guarantee target destruction, precision-guided systems achieve the same effect with a handful of shells. That conservation of ammunition extends operational endurance, while the accuracy eliminates the collateral damage that comes from area saturation fire. According to South Korean Defense Ministry statements and confirmed by multiple regional media outlets, the strikes against North Korean positions achieved complete target destruction with minimal ammunition expenditure. 7 guard posts destroyed, command bunkers collapsed, observation equipment obliterated, and the return fire from North Korean positions, the counter-battery response that should have immediately followed any attack on fortified military installations, never came. It was not an Iranian general who confirmed that North Korean artillery crews failed to respond effectively. It was the silence from the North Korean side, the absence of the kind of immediate retaliation that has characterized every previous border incident over the past 70 years. Let that sink in for a moment. The North Korean military, which bases its entire defensive doctrine on overwhelming artillery firepower positioned to rain destruction on Seoul within minutes of any conflict, sat silent while South Korean forces systematically destroyed their border positions. The implications of that silence extend far beyond the immediate tactical situation. Regional defense analysts noted something even more revealing in the aftermath of these strikes. North Korean forces did not attempt to rebuild the destroyed positions. They did not rush engineering units forward to restore the fortifications. They did not even appear to reinforce adjacent positions that might be targeted next. The response was paralysis, the kind of organizational paralysis that suggests something has broken in the command structure, in the decision-making apparatus, in the fundamental confidence that should characterize a military force operating on its own territory. If you are watching this and you understand what this moment means for the security dynamics of Northeast Asia, for the calculations being made in Beijing and Washington, for the assumptions that have governed Korean Peninsula military planning for 7 decades, then share this video right now. Click the like button. Help more people understand what is actually happening, because the mainstream news cycle will not give this story the depth it deserves. What does this mean strategically? This is where the story goes from shocking to genuinely alarming for anyone who understands the regional power balance. The entire premise of North Korean military strategy for decades has been that their massed artillery positioned along the DMZ represents an existential threat to South Korea that cannot be neutralized without triggering catastrophic civilian casualties. Military planners in Seoul and Washington have operated under the assumption that any conflict on the peninsula would begin with North Korean artillery bombardment of the Seoul metropolitan area, home to 25 million people, located less than 50 kilometers from the border. That threat, the ability to inflict massive civilian casualties within the first hours of any conflict, has functioned as North Korea's conventional deterrent, the capability that makes military action against the regime unthinkable despite its nuclear weapons program, its human rights violations, its persistent provocations. The K-9 Thunder strikes directly attack that assumption. If South Korean forces can identify, target, and destroy hardened North Korean positions with precision and speed that prevents effective response, then the massed artillery threat becomes far less imposing. Implementing widespread deployment of precision counter-battery systems capable of suppressing North Korean artillery before it can inflict maximum damage fundamentally alters the strategic calculation. It does not eliminate the threat entirely. North Korea possesses thousands of artillery pieces, many positioned in hardened tunnels that can be sealed and protected until the moment of firing. But it transforms the problem from an unsolvable dilemma into a manageable military challenge, requiring significant resources and careful planning, but no longer representing an automatic guarantee of catastrophic civilian casualties. You cannot solve this problem overnight. You cannot rush the targeting intelligence, the sensor networks, the precision munitions production. And in the meantime, every assumption about Korean Peninsula military balance now exists under a new kind of scrutiny that nobody has a simple answer for. The implications for the United States are also direct and immediate. American forces in South Korea, numbering approximately 28,000 troops, have operated for decades under the assumption that their presence deters North Korean aggression, precisely because any attack on South Korea would automatically involve American forces and trigger full United States military response. That deterrence framework assumed rough parity in conventional capability, offset by overwhelming American air power and technological superiority. What these strikes demonstrate is that the technological gap has widened to the point where South Korean forces alone may possess the capability to neutralize North Korean conventional threats without requiring the kind of massive American intervention that has been assumed necessary. That changes decision-making. That changes force posture planning. That changes the calculus of what it means to maintain an American military presence on the Korean Peninsula, when South Korean forces have demonstrated they can handle border security challenges independently. Each of these developments individually would be significant news. Together, they paint a picture of a North Korean military that has degraded far beyond what most analysts in the West fully appreciated. The technological gap between North and South Korea has been growing for years, as South Korea invested in precision munitions, digitized command and control systems, drone capabilities, and integrated air defense networks, while North Korea poured resources into nuclear weapons development and ballistic missile programs. What remained unclear was whether that technological advantage would translate into operational effectiveness during actual military confrontation. These strikes provide the answer. South Korean precision artillery systems performed exactly as designed, achieving complete target destruction, while North Korean forces proved incapable of mounting effective response. But the story becomes even more concerning when you examine what happened in Pyongyang in the days and weeks following these strikes. According to reports from defectors, regional intelligence sources, and analysis of North Korean state media patterns, Kim Jong Un's response to the military setback has been to intensify internal purges, targeting military leadership, increase surveillance and control measures over the general population, and deflect blame away from systemic military weakness toward alleged sabotage and foreign interference. The pattern is familiar to anyone who studies authoritarian regimes facing legitimacy crises. When external failure threatens the foundational narrative of regime strength and invincibility, the leadership turns inward, seeking internal enemies to blame and tightening control to prevent any questioning of the supreme leader's judgment. North Korean state media in the weeks following the strikes noticeably avoided any mention of the border incidents, a silence that speaks volumes in a propaganda system that typically trumpets every minor defensive success as proof of military superiority. That silence suggests an acknowledgement at the highest levels that what happened along the DMZ cannot be spun into victory, cannot be explained away as anything other than a significant setback. According to Israeli defense analysts who have studied similar authoritarian military structures, when a regime built entirely on projected strength suffers visible military failure, the internal political dynamics become extraordinarily dangerous. The military leadership faces impossible pressure to restore credibility while lacking the resources or capability to actually address the fundamental problems. The political leadership becomes increasingly paranoid about potential coup attempts or military dissatisfaction. And the general population, watching the contradiction between official propaganda claims of invincibility and the reality of military failure, begins to question the foundational myths that sustain regime authority. Drawing an analogy to organizational dynamics, a military force that fails to respond to direct attack on its positions is like a business that fails to defend its core market against competitive assault. It reveals not just tactical failure, but fundamental organizational dysfunction, a breakdown in the systems and processes that should enable effective response. And just as a business facing that kind of dysfunction cannot simply work harder using the same broken processes, a military suffering organizational paralysis cannot restore effectiveness through intensified discipline or loyalty demands. The problems run deeper than effort or commitment. They reflect systemic deficiencies in training, equipment, command structure, and operational doctrine that take years to address, even under the best circumstances. And North Korea does not operate under the best circumstances. International sanctions limit access to advanced technology. Economic constraints restrict military spending on anything beyond the nuclear weapons program that consumes enormous resources. And the political imperative of maintaining absolute loyalty to the Kim family supersedes military effectiveness considerations, ensuring that competent professionals get sidelined in favor of politically reliable mediocrities. The conflicting narratives that have emerged around these events deserve careful examination. According to North Korean state media and official statements, the border situation remains fully under control. South Korean provocations have been dealt with appropriately, and the military stands ready to annihilate any enemy aggression. These statements appeared weeks after the actual strikes occurred, making no specific reference to the destroyed guard posts or the failed response. United States Forces Korea issued measured statements noting increased monitoring of the border situation and emphasizing the continued readiness of American and South Korean forces to respond to any escalation. Pentagon officials, when questioned about the incidents, acknowledged that South Korean forces had conducted what they termed precision counter-fire operations, but declined to provide detailed assessment of North Korean capability degradation. The careful language, the avoidance of triumphalist rhetoric, the emphasis on continued deterrence rather than battlefield victory, all suggested an understanding at senior levels that publicly humiliating North Korea risked triggering the kind of desperate escalation that could spiral into broader conflict. For many observers, the mere fact that North Korean guard posts were destroyed without triggering immediate retaliation marked a significant shift in the military dynamic, regardless of whether detailed damage assessments have been independently verified. The absence of North Korean response spoke louder than any official statement could. In the absence of independent satellite imagery confirming the precise extent of destruction, the truth of specific tactical details remained contested, but the strategic significance was undeniable. Whether 7 guard posts were completely destroyed or severely damaged, whether command bunkers collapsed entirely or were rendered temporarily inoperable, the fundamental reality remained unchanged. South Korean forces struck North Korean military positions with precision weapons, and North Korean forces failed to mount effective response. So where does this leave us? It leaves us at a moment in history where the military balance on the Korean Peninsula has shifted in ways that challenge 7 decades of strategic assumptions. South Korean precision artillery systems have demonstrated operational effectiveness that neutralizes significant portions of the North Korean conventional threat. North Korean military forces have revealed organizational dysfunction and capability gaps that suggest deeper systemic problems than most analysts previously understood. And Kim Jong Un's regime faces the impossible challenge of maintaining its legitimacy narrative of military invincibility while confronting the reality of technological and operational inferiority. 7 guard posts destroyed. Fortified positions that were supposed to survive conventional attack did not. North Korean counter-battery fire that should have immediately responded never came. This is a story that is still developing, and Legal Lens USA will keep you updated as new information emerges. If this video helped you understand what is really happening along the Korean Peninsula, please share it with someone who needs to see it and drop a comment below. Do you think North Korea has a credible military response to South Korean precision weapon systems, or has the conventional balance shifted permanently in Seoul's favor? Let us know what you think, because this conversation matters and your perspective matters. This community has some of the sharpest geopolitical minds on YouTube, and these comment sections have produced analysis that rivals what you hear from professional think tanks. This is what modern precision artillery has done in its operational debut, along the most heavily fortified border on Earth. Every military analyst, every defense ministry, every intelligence service monitoring the Korean Peninsula is now absorbing what that means. The answers are not clear yet. The response is not defined yet. But the question has been asked loudly through 7 destroyed guard posts and the silence that followed.